Good morning, evening, whatever it is where you are, and welcome to Looking for Legends. Let me change that. All right, tonight we interrupt your usual broadcasting to dive into what really makes a great player or GM. Is it storytelling? Is it teamwork, rules mastery, or something else? We're going to break it all down, and we want to hear your takes too. So please feel free to be active in the chat. Let us know what you're thinking. Any questions, thoughts, or any other things you want to put in the chat. So let's go ahead and talk some legends, guys. We kind of briefly talked before we got on. Let's just get this out in the open. What are some of your all's initial thoughts in terms of what makes a great GM? Because that's kind of the structure we're going to follow is GM and then into player. What are your all's initial thoughts on what makes a great GM? Dang.
Yeah, throw me under the bus. My first note for GMs would be participation and flexibility. Plans key story beats, but adapts when players go off script, and also balances structure with improvisation. So,
Absolutely. I'm trying to pick music. Gosh dang it. I don't remember what any of these are. What's
just not combat.
I think that's a great point though, as far as like especially flexibility, because I do think that you will have some who are almost too rigid, but at the same time you can get some that have no idea. Like, a dog chasing cars, they wouldn't know what to do with one if they caught it. However, having the perfect balance and getting that flexibility in there, I think is actually really important for GM, DM, whatever TTRPG you're going through.
Sure.
For me, it's any GM that can really not just dig into their players' characters, but the players themselves. Tapping into emotion is not the easiest thing to learn to do or manage to get done, but if it can be done and it can be done well, then that's really what builds the connection to the game.
Sure. Yeah. I don't really have very much experience as a player, so I don't know that I can speak to what makes a great GM all that much, but I would say something that I've always strove to do, something I've always attempted to make sure is prevalent in my games and the way that I run is open communication and safety. So like I always kind of will prioritize things like if a GM puts safety tools like a consent sheet or stars and wishes like we do, or lines and veils, all those types of things, X cards. I think I would, as a player, really value that sort of thing, keeping lines of communication open and creating a safe space for everyone to have like fun in. So as you all have all kind of GM'd as well, what do you all think is the balance between like prep and improv, like Will was saying? What's kind of that, just to kind of bring that back to where we started, where's the balance for you, and where do you think the balance lies for like the GMs that you've played with that you have enjoyed?
For me, you can have like an idea of what you want your players to deal with, but again, we're all autistic theater kids, so we're going to go off script. Like, just because I want you to fight this guy, but there's a little kobold friend right here, I need to talk to him. A DM needs to just have an outline. You're not making a story, we're all making the story. You just need an outline. you want your players to engage with this. You leave them clues for this. You give them reasons to do this. This guy slapped an old lady. Well, we got to go kick his ass. You know, you need to have reasons why your players would want to do this task. And a DM should just have the fluidity, like we talked about, and stats of things ready to go. It's like, okay, this trap, this puzzle, this monster, I know what this does. Will they run into it? I don't know, but I'm ready for it just in case. I have to just be able to react to whatever they say, as they have to react to whatever I say.
I would actually say that, like, I agree with almost everything besides the fact I would add a little extra to the idea of getting what is it, having like stats and stuff ready for things. I think too many people might like they assume that the DM needs to be prepared for everything. That's not it at all. I think the best DM in that moment would do hypothetically what we've seen on our Looking for Legends, where Josh, you will go one moment, and you reach behind you at your extensive amount of books, and you start flipping through stuff, and then we, as players, just take a moment, whatever that looks like, and then you come back to it. It's in any scenario, the sentence doesn't always need to continue because you still, as a human, need to breathe. So, like, take that moment and just breathe. Pick something, even if it wasn't what like you truly wanted. It'll end up being what I think is necessary for the party to go against, or to topple as far as a puzzle is concerned, or anything like that. Just because you took the time to see something and you went along with it, just like we were saying with the flexibility and everything like that. Again, it's more about creating a space to allow the story to continue forward, even if forward means sideways now.
Mm-hmm.
It often allows for random moments of bullshit, so there's comedic opportunity there too.
Yeah, another thing that I'm kind of like, I do a little bit of in my home game, but I'm afraid to do on stream, is that experimenting like with like, okay, players went here and there was, it's very obvious that something, is there. I hadn't planned on them going there, but now that they have, very quickly, a a monster that they could fight at this level probably has, relatively like 24 HP with an AC of 14 and no fly speed, but maybe they have an action that allows them to, fly 30 feet or something, and kind of like almost homebrewing on the fly, like becoming familiar enough with the statistics in the monster manual, or just like I think the DMG has a chart of, a CR 1/4 has this AC, this HP, this, whatever, all the way across, and becoming familiar enough with those things that you can kind of in the moment be like, okay, they went here, so it's likely this kind of monster. Let's just say it has this HP and it does this much damage in a turn. And I'm trying to become myself a little bit more comfortable with things like that, so that I don't have to take quite so much time to be like, all right, guys, give me a second. I appreciate that is something that is seen, on stream. Like I enjoy that other GMs can look at it and be like, oh yeah, that's totally cool. Like that we can have that time to say, hey, give me a second, let me prep something, but at the same time, it is also a good thing to begin familiarizing yourself as a GM with the stats of whatever RPG you're running and the way that monsters are constructed to be able to do that easier on the fly, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. And we've seen what is it? We've seen countless DMs at every level of gaming and streaming pull out the player's handbooks.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, you know, like I've seen Mercer do it multiple
Yeah.
times. Brennan, he'll always say, "Well, what's the ruling on it?" You know,
Yep.
and makes the player look for it. Notice that too. So, like, again, there's many different ways that, like, obviously, it's no one person is going to know everything, and if they do, well, we'll get to those people later.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question, and it's something that often is it's kind of popularized in the age of live play streams like our own, but more like Critical Role, Dimension 20, etc., 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 Tales of Evantris, all those, you know, bigger names than we are. Does every GM need to be a good improviser? Like, I know we're kind of hitting these same themes, but you do see people like Brennan Lee Mulligan, who are just master improvisers, and people like Matt Mercer that you know that they don't have everything planned out, but they just kind of transition to things flawlessly. Aubrey Iyengar, like these, I guess that's kind of like the big three, right? But then it kind of like, as GMs, we kind of assume that we then have to be really fantastic improvisers. Is that something that is that something everybody has to be good at, or is what are the alternatives that
I don't
could
think
be equivalent?
I don't think, you know, improvising is fantastic, and I think every DM should have some level of it. No one's going to be here for every game. Even the same person might have a bad day where it's like, brain fart, you know, but you want to be somewhat flexible, because if you're the DM, that if someone's trying to do something within his skill set that is cool in game, but you're like, you weren't ready for it, or that's not what the storyline that you had planned, you're going to be like, no. And that immediately just takes all the fun out of that moment for that player. And no one wants that. You want to maintain, like, yeah, we did this thing, or, ooh, we found this. It's not the highest thing that you need as a DM, but it does help to have some level of flexibility.
I do find too that it often depends on exactly what playstyle you all agreed to play, because there are those players that don't really want to have to go off script. They want to be railroaded with a story. So it's just a matter of coming to an agreement and making sure that everybody's on the same page.
I would say that.
Go ahead.
I would say that improvisation doesn't. Yeah, like Will said, you don't need to be good. I think more or less it's a simple willingness to just try something new or different, like because that's what it really comes down to. It's just like you said, having an idea that you want to do, and you're like, oh, because overall it's cooperative storytelling, and if you want to tell a story, like, that's fantastic. Put your themes in there. So what I'm hearing us all say is that, like, a direction is good, a beginning, maybe a middle conflict, and an end is good to have, but, like, let the players get there the way they get there.
Sure.
And, like, that's where I think the improvisation it comes in, to just instead be, like I said, a simple willingness to try something new or different.
Yeah, I think, like, everyone has kind of their own style, right? And like Kelsey said, the game that you agree to play might be a much more kind of railroady game, or like I have a group that I tried to drop into a sandbox, and they had no clue what to do with it. they were scrambling looking for like looking for a hook, and I'm like, well, just engage with the world. And they're like, well, just give us something to engage with. And I'm like, I built a whole world for you, like what do you want from me? And so eventually though, that was probably 3 years ago at this point, eventually like we got to the point where it was like, oh, they understood what I meant and I understand what they meant, and we've kind of come to this middle like linear storytelling. But you know, everybody kind of will have their own style. Some people will be much more comfortable with off the cuff, you know, totally crackhead kind of gameplay, and other people are gonna be much more like the when we talk about like classes of DMs, right? Like the wizard, you know, that has his books and his tomes, and he, you know, is prepared for everything, et cetera, et cetera. And some people are going to be the artificer that has, you know, tons of maps and traps and all those things.
Bomb in every pocket.
Yeah.
It was in my character.
So yeah, I'm vibing with everything that's being said in terms of like it's an agreed upon thing, and it's also like agreed upon, collaborative, and I guess experiential, right? Like or experiential, like trying new things and learning constantly.
Yeah, we don't play games to be comfortable, you know? It's like we I mean, some of us do for the most part, but like again, it's because it's a comforting hobby. But that is the thing of like obviously us being like we love theater, we love everything, we love big storytelling. So like obviously we're gonna go the route of like, oh, I will poke this, but that again goes all the way back to the conversation that we had at the very beginning of like, what do you want from this? Like, and I do think that part of improvisation comes from needing to have a conversation with the players and like a willingness to be open, right, about like whatever happens. And I do think that a DM has to be able to have that as a skill, to just be like not allow themselves to be closed off and know their party. And now you're not going to be able to get that with every single thing. For example, if you go to Adventure League stuff, like, but I do think that that comes from more or less a perspective of like the player choosing their scenario to get into. And so like that's them basically wanting to try different things, and because I've only done that once and not my cup of tea, but I would prefer more of a familiar group that I can just do everything with.
Sure.
In Adventure League, I started off doing that, and everything for that was modules. And modules are great. However, they are a set thing. So if your DM has only read this, he might only know what's going on here. So if you're the type of player that's like used to open world theater of the mind kind of thing, and you want to be like, hey, is there like a forest nearby? Because I want to like go hunt something. They're like, map says no, only because the art stops there. And you know, it's not so much a handicap, but it's a limitation. So any player could get inserted into this world at any time to play. So that DM can reuse that world over and over again for, hey, this is for level 1 to level 5. This is for level 6 to level 10, you know. But some people are only used to modules, and modules have limitations. Now, modules are also fantastic as a stepping stone. It's like, hey, I like this story. Let's add this. Let's spin this. Let's see what happens when my players hit this situation. So,
whenever I run a homebrew game, I always start it with a like module. Gives me time to like set up. It gives the time for the players to like know their characters and sort of get into like their abilities, who they are, their stories, what they want to do. And then by the end of the module, I'm like, okay. And then that's when I set a different hook to be like, and now into this whole world. And I do think that like modules, just like you said, can be extremely useful. But like I learned a while ago that like, yeah, they're very like, once you stop and people are like, but I want more. And you're like, oh no, I'm not ready. It's like always be prepared that people will want more.
Yeah, I love. So I do not. I've tried running a few modules, and I did not like most of them. Not because, not because I don't like modules. Like I think they're a brilliant tool, but because my crackhead brain can't like do the. Okay, well, this is you went here, so that's this encounter. You went here, so okay. Until I got to this book, which people complain about for not having enough in it, and I love that about it. Like the fact that Central Campus is just like, I don't know what's there. It's got the biblioplex, probably some food, like I love it because then I can entirely populate Central Campus, or like in between adventures, like you've got an indefinite amount of time that you can work with to fill things out, right? Like 6 weeks could have gone by, so long as by the end of 2 semesters you've gotten this much done. And so then you've got I got online and I was like university activities, like student body activities, all these different things that I was kind of putting into an in-game schedule that my players could interact with and like go be a part of, and I'd have different things set at each one. But because it was so bare bones, like that's what I liked about this one, was that it gave me a structure to rely on, like kind of like Will was saying. It gave me the structure, and then I could just kind of pour into it everything else that I wanted, which I thought was amazing. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Please tell me you had them throw at least one tanker. Like instead of a keg or a tanker.
Listen, this is it's what happens in frat parties stays in frat parties. It was great. Some of my players actually would get on like day of and be like, "Who's ready for hood rat stuff?" Like, let's go. Let's see. What do I have in my notes now?
And module for like world books and everything are great for me because, like we said before, chat, I'm not good at creating a world. I'm good at creating scenarios and monsters and traps. I could do that as a DM, but establishing a world that makes sense, that's difficult for me. For time wise and thought process wise, it's not exactly in my forte. But I can come up with quests, not a problem. But if I have a world to branch off of, like, hey, we're living in Taldore, we're living in Stormwind, we're living whatever, that's where I can have established with the book. And then I can, hey, they're going off this way, and there's nothing really important going here, but it fits a theme that I came up with a while back. I'm going to insert that quest here.
I think that kind of plays on another thing that I think makes a really great GM is knowing where your strengths are. Like that scene in Game of Thrones after one king dies. It's far enough past.
It's been so long. Who cares about spoilers? It's on them.
I can say
it wasn't that good.
Like after Joffrey dies, and
watch your mouth.
Tywin
it really wasn't
to that younger kid. I don't remember his name. Anyway, is like what makes a good king, And they eventually got to wisdom. Wisdom makes a good king. And what's wisdom? Wisdom is knowing what you don't know and trusting your advisors on those things. So like I think in terms of GMing, knowing what you're not good at and then finding ways to supplement that. Like I use maps that I don't make because I hate it, I suck at it, not my thing. I am not a particularly like mechanics minded person, so like homebrewed monsters I can do, but I lean on other people like Will or like some creators on Patreon that that I subscribe to. Like the I think that also contributes to making a great GM is knowing what you're good at, playing to those strengths, and finding things that help you in the areas that you're not so good at.
Agreed. I think it can be extremely subjective too, because some players, they can be expecting that rigidity, and they want somebody who is extremely good at modules. And so you're going to look for something that's more like, whether it's Adventure League or just going to like your shops, right? And you'll find those. And like I think based on that perspective, like that person can also be an extremely good DM as long as you know your material, but also if you know how to have fun with it too.
Sure.
Because a lot of modules, especially like them paperback ones, they're really wordy, but there's not a lot of space for players, you know? And so like if you could put within that module, like, yes, walk me through the entire thing front to back, you'll know, like the GM knows it in and out. But at the end of the day, it's like if you have a character who like wants to try something, like wants to maybe talk to an NPC a little longer, right? Like it would look a little different. So it is about being able to just sort of pivot in those moments.
Yeah. So we've got in our ideal great GM, somebody who is flexible with prep versus improvisation. We've got somebody who utilizes safety tools and keeps open communication at all times. Tries not to shut down the players, but yes, and them. We've got somebody.
I think we should touch on that one just a little bit more. I think.
Oh, sure.
Because again, the idea of using safety tools is extraordinary, but like I've seen a lot of pushback on it from like certain tables, especially in the like Adventure League realm. From what I have seen,
Really?
You get individuals at the table who are almost uncomfortable with those safety tools being there. So if the safety tool isn't the thing that people are stoked on, again, just like you were saying, it's the open conversation. But that sort of goes two ways. I think a player does need to be able to speak to the thing that made them uncomfortable. And as long as they can state that and feel safe enough and comfortable with the DM to be like, hey, this made me uncomfortable. Is there like a compromise or something, like as opposed to a DM just being like, no, that's not how I run my games. We're going to keep it this way. Like, I think the mentality has to be that you need to be able to accept, again, like I've been saying this whole time, like an openness, right? Like an openness, willingness to do something new or different. And I think that would change a lot of individuals' perspectives on the game. And that, again, for me, is a DM, GM that is leaps and bounds above the rest.
One of the tools I incorporated when I did home games at like game shops is I would give all my new players a form. And the form is 70% of the questions on there are about their character. Because you'll have characters come to the table that have 2 sentences of backstory, and then you have some that have 20 pages. But these questions will fill in the gap and make them think about it. The 70% of the questions are like, who's your childhood friend? Did you have a pet? Are your parents alive? Did you come from a large or small village? What do you fear? What are your goals? And then you'll sprinkle in the other 30% of the questions for the player themselves. What are you comfortable with? What do you want to see in the game? What's your favorite monster? What monster do you want to avoid in combat at all costs? And stuff like that. So you're getting the whole consent form type thing for yourself as a DM, because as you're reading this, it was like, okay, avoid this. Avoid the common things, obviously, that are the bad.
Yeah.
But some people still try to use it. But you'll see, like, okay, this guy has a problem if kids get hurt. Like, okay, so won't have that happen. And it's like, oh, his childhood friend had this happen to him. So I know it's a trigger for his character, so I can use that, but it's not going to bother the player himself or herself. So it helps with the story in the future, and it also makes sure no one's super uncomfortable. They could be scared. That's great. But you don't want anyone to be like, ick.
Yeah. So I think with all of that being said, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure that we could sit here and think of plenty of like minute things. I think that those really are some great things that will help make a great GM. So we might as well at this point kind of transition into players and what makes a great player. It's kind of what this is, what the title of this thing is, right? What makes a great player? Let's talk. So let's see. Do I have any notes on play? Well, let's just initial thoughts like last time. What do you guys think on the initial first thoughts makes a great player?
Team player mentality.
Yes.
You can be the superhero in your own mind. Good. This is a group role-playing game. You want to be an edgelord, cool, but you're not Superman. Let everyone shine. It's not about you. It's about us. Work together. If you find loot that benefits someone more than you, don't be a loot goblin. It's like, oh, I got this. You'll never use it, but you know it would benefit the crap out of your mage back there who has really terrible AC. Help the party. Yes. Don't help yourself. Because if everyone is powerful, you're all unstoppable. If it's just you, then you're going to have to carry the party. And then you're going to complain the whole time like, oh, they're not pulling your weight. It's your fault that they're not pulling their weight. You took that power from them by trying to make everything about you.
I actually will second that and say, like, that's even a major point in a video I'm about to release on Wednesday, like with just player tips, like how you can be a better player in TTRPGs. And that's one of the things that I say, like, absolutely having that team player mentality, being able to elevate other players, and even just in things like, I don't know, like, oh, my character is not very charismatic, so I'm not going to jump in and hog a conversation, even though I, like, as a person, like to think that I'm relatively charismatic and love to talk, right? Like, I can sit back for a second while somebody else does that, who has, and not saying that you should never do anything that your character's not good at, you know, like we've said so far, like, try new things. If the story lends itself to it, do it. But you're not Superman. You're not a one-man army. You're not a lone wolf. Like, be able to look at your other players and help them achieve what they want from the game, in addition to you getting what you want from the game. And I don't know if that factors into like communication or collaboration or like kind of all of the above, but yeah, absolutely that. And
Something else to keep in mind too is the same open communication that you expect from GMs to players and players to GMs, player to player as well. Your fellow players are not mind readers. Don't treat them like one.
Mm-hmm. And also don't like, if you got something spicy to do, like don't necessarily spring it on them without like giving them a heads up. We do that all the time in in our stream. Like, hey, can I do this? Like, is that chill with you? Or, hey, I was thinking about doing this, heads up. You know, like letting each other know behind the scenes before we do something, because springing something on somebody can be like...
You can often get emotional responses and they won't necessarily be your emotions.
Yes.
And I would go back to the original statement that tension can work, especially if it is in terms of like Will, like you said, keeping an item, but only when it comes off starting off like your party doesn't know each other at first.
Sure.
Right? And so like I do think that it does come down to that communication and collaboration, that if it's just like Kelsey said, if you're people, right? Like you have to be people. Like you're all at this table together. Like, yes, there is a layer of like above board and below board, right? And like in game, right? There is that difference. And being able to sort of separate that from a perspective of, am I attacking this like the player, or am I attacking the character because of a certain thing? And like also the whole, don't use the excuse of like, oh, it's what my character would do, because that's how both player and character get their ass beat. So I mean,
the only time that is ever acceptable is when everybody's having fun with it.
Oh,
yes,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Like if everybody's giggling at the bullshit going down, then sure, have a ball, go nuts.
Mhm.
But don't sit there and be the only one giggling at the table and then wonder why nobody wants to play with you.
Yeah, exactly. It is the idea of like, why would you single out somebody specifically because you want to make them uncomfortable? Like, again, getting that like role play rise out of somebody. Like, it is there have been moments in our streams where like the only time that I am shocked is when the RP is so tense and I'm just like, oh, this is happening. Wow. This is like lore drops everywhere, right? Like it's those intense moments that we as a team agreed upon that we were going to seek those moments out. But like if you're just like, okay, cool, I'm really excited, this is a cool character, and then you're like, all right, you know, I have a strict thing that I'm not going to hurt innocents, and then another player at your table decides to, and you're like, well, in order to move this game forward, I'm not going to say anything, but this character I'm going to have to completely like remove from the game in order to have a good time. And I personally had to do that at one point, so like it was not a cool time to do, but like you got to do what you got to do to survive in those moments. But ultimately, I think the player, what is it? The player's best weapon is let's leave, right? You know, so like quite literally, if your table makes you uncomfortable and nothing changes, leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's, you know, that's only if you can't solve anything, and that's where I think compromise is important. Yeah, at the very least.
Something that I know I appreciate as a GM from players is note takers. Like, I know that's kind of a, that's the elephant in the room, right? Like, that's kind of the thing. But no, really, like, even just basic notes. I really appreciate when I come to the beginning of a session and I say, hey, I'll give an inspiration to anybody who can recap last session, and more than one person has enough notes to like hit the major points of what happened. That's a huge deal to me. And so like I would say, while not like, my wife has notes like 6 paragraphs for a single session. You don't have to do that, but just having bullet points of went to tavern, heard rumor of fight pit, went to fight pit, 160 gold. Like that, you know what I mean? That's enough to recap what happened.
Made enemy for life.
Those, just that much can really improve not just like the GM's job, but like your own play and your experience with the other players, because that's player buy-in, that's, you investing in the story. So I think taking notes is a one that I think makes a great player.
I'd actually say that you don't need to necessarily take notes. It is, however, the investment of the player in the moments that are happening. Like, I would say that, like, if you have somebody who is truly like, they come ready to be in the story, they come ready to truly play, like, that person will remember far more than a person who is having a day, we'll put that in quotes, who is just like there to flex a schedule. You know what I mean?
Not everybody has a mind like a steel trap, Kevin.
I'm not saying that. Look, that was one of my caveats. Okay, like, yes, I know that I do. Okay, but like, what I'm getting at is that, like, I know everybody has a life outside of it.
Sure.
So like, when you are able to truly just like sort of be like, hit the mute button on all the other noise, and then you're just at the table with your friends, right? Like, that's it. And even if all they remembered was like, oh hey, remember when this happened? But between everything, the reason my mind is like a steel trap is because through all the nonsense that happens during our games, like, I'm able to piece like, oh yeah, the thing that you're talking about happened roughly when we did this, right? Like, I'm able to just map it out through those emotions because I'm invested in that, right? So like, note taking, yes, but for me, note taking takes away, because like, once I start writing, well, it's my belief that you cannot do two things at the same time with language. So again, like, if somebody is speaking at you and you try to write something down, you are no longer listening to them.
No, sure. I as a GM, when I take notes, I do it after session. I don't do anything during session, so I can be present.
See, that's a good tip.
All else failing, AI does it now. You can just run the recording through an AI and it takes the notes for you. There's not much excuse anymore.
It's true. If you're recording your sessions, a lot of home games don't have that luxury.
Memos on your phone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Even if you're not streaming your game, but you are playing with other people online, record yourself and do like Kelsey said. If you're recording yourself, you're recording everyone.
Sure.
Run it through the system. That way you're like ready for, they're like, hey, we got to play again in like 3 weeks. Well, I'm not going to remember all that. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, we did this. I killed this. I gained this. All right, cool.
I would say, as a tip to add on to that, consent is important if you're going to record. So
that's what I was going to say.
So if you're thinking about recording your home game,
Let
make
them
sure
know.
you check with the players and GM before you do that.
Yeah.
Or check your local laws. We can't tell you what to do.
I can certainly try.
So
I'm not recommending that. Don't do that.
What about backstories?
Whoa.
when I started GMing, wanted all my players to have a page backstory, which I thought was pretty minimal buy-in. But is having a backstory something that's necessary to be a good player?
No.
I wouldn't say necessarily that a backstory is necessary. You can come up with your character as you go, but you do at least have to have a base personality for the character. Come up with the whys off the fly all you want to, but know who you're playing.
Sure.
That's why I have that consent form, because I'll have players that they created a character just because they like the sound of it, but had no time or had no drive to make a backstory. The form actually helps them think a little bit. It's like, oh, well, yeah, this character would like this. So they don't have to make a full-on backstory, but at least they'd have a baseline just from that. And they could build off of it later if they want. They might become inspired to make a backstory after the fact.
Yeah, and most people
ahead.
don't like, especially when it comes to like new people coming to something like D&D or TTRPGs like it. It can be pretty daunting, the idea of like, oh,
Sure.
like I've played all these video games that have just like these really fleshed out characters. Like, how could I ever like make something like that? And then it is the concept of just like, it's not necessary. I would. That's why you have tools in the player's handbook that literally says, like, as you're building your character, like, what are their quirks? You can roll a d6 for most of them.
Yeah,
You know?
the skills, the bonds.
Yeah, exactly. It's simple stuff for you to be like, okay, if that's me, then and sometimes what I personally have loved doing is just creating a character, coming up with a concept of a backstory, like literally like an idea that I'd like to get them to or that they have gone through, but it's very simple, maybe a paragraph, and then building it as like we play. Like, that's cool to be like, oh, because then you get other people who are doing stuff and you're like, oh, they did that. Oh, well, if I took that, like, how would I do that as a player? And then again, that's where you get to that collaborative storytelling. It's just even better, in my opinion.
And it's also really fun when you lean into those random bonds, because then you'll have games pop up on you that you never intended to play, starting romances with characters that you never saw playing romances with.
Hey, it works.
Scorn was a merchant NPC that I had in my home game. He had no backstory except for the fact that he was an alchemist. I made it up on the fly the day before I sent it to the DM, his backstory, because what made sense in this world? Well, he has to have a goal, he has to have an enemy, and he has to have a reason for being.
Yeah.
And before, he was just that, goblin merchant that, if you steal from me, I'm gonna, melt your fingers slowly and pickle them.
The pickling
I love
is true.
I think that touches on something that really, I don't know if this is a character tip, but like it falls under player. So have a reason, like give your character a reason, not just for adventuring, but for adventuring with the party, right? So it's kind of plays into that team mentality. We're like, okay, you're a edgelord, or you're an evil PC, or whatever. You're a noble who doesn't want to associate with these peons. That's fine, but you have to. So like that's part of the agreement, right? The social contract of D&D. We get together to go through these adventures and have a lot of fun. So no matter how antisocial, no matter how like against the party, no matter how evil, whatever, give your character a reason to adventure with the party, even if they hate them.
And touching on that, have your character RP with every other character, good or bad. Don't exclude anybody.
Make it a list and go down it.
Build a bond, build a rivalry. Might flip, it might turn the other way. You might have someone that you hate in this game because their character represents this. and then now all of a sudden you're brothers, or vice versa. This person you could have started traveling with initially because backstory wise, these two characters started together. That's why they're together, and now they're hate each other because someone did something in the story that is against their creed. So build off of it. Nothing's bad, nothing's good. Just do something.
You're
Don't
knowingly,
exclude it.
yeah, you're knowingly joining a team cooperative style game. Act like it.
And to that point, don't try to usurp the vibe either. Like, for example, if you go with, what is it? If you're running a campaign where everybody is sort of morally gray, but you all lean towards like good, don't be the person who is like, I'm gonna play an evil NPC. You know what I mean? Like, just don't do it. Like,
Or do again. Consent is key.
Yeah.
And yes, if that's the point of it, and like, there is like, and you can look at our Caravan of the Lost when that comes out, and that'll be an interesting thing to see. Are they good? Are they?
Yeah.
The main thing is to be neutral, good. Be at the baseline, good. It's hard to run a game where you're neutral, evil. You can be chaotic, but if everyone's primarily on the side of good and you're the one guy burning down orphanages, it's going to be hard to keep you in the party, because we had a player in a home game that I did who everyone was primarily a good person. And we had one player who said they were good, but would steal from, not even a rogue, would steal from other players in their sleep, would make sure they had any reason to take the item that was found in a quest, and she burned down an orphanage. And she's like, all right. And we're like, we have to turn you in. You killed innocent people. You didn't burn down bandits. You killed children. We can't keep you here. So she ended up having to redo a character because her character is executed. And then she was all butthurt because she wanted to play as that character. I'm like, you killed her off. You did that. We can't justify what you did. We can't save you. So
Dang.
It's real though. Again, like there are consequences to your make-believe actions, and just like in real life, that's, in my opinion, up to the tables to make sure that like those kinds of things goes all the way back to what we said about consent and safety tools, about talking about those and being like, hey, let's reel that way back.
It's also important to remember too that when those circumstances happen, because not always when that happens at a table is it intentional. Sometimes it's, oh shit, I did it bad. Oh boy. Remember, when you're the one with your hand caught like that, don't get defensive about it. Don't get upset. Be like, okay, yep, well, be, what's the word? Gracious, I want to say, or humble.
Be willing to learn.
There you go.
That too.
Because again, that's the whole thing. Be willing to try something new, do something different. And I've learned that many a time I do not like to sit with uncomfortable feelings. So we as humans will do anything we can to avoid an uncomfortable situation. My best advice for any person is to sit with the uncomfortable. First off, ask yourself why you are. Second, make a decision based on that. Not a quick one, but nonetheless, like, just make a decision based on being uncomfortable and allow yourself the ability to change your perspective or circumstances.
Yeah. So got a couple questions, points, whatever, for kind of a both situation. game mastery, as in like, you know, rules and mechanics, the being good at D&D, or whatever TTRPG. How do you think that plays into being a good GM or player? And because we've kind of moved through, I think, GM and player individually, but what do you guys think in terms of, just generally like mastering the rules and the mechanics? How does that play into being a great GM or player?
I'm going to take this one first. So, when it comes to knowing everything and needing to know everything, fine, do it. But do not allow that knowledge to usurp your fun. Do not allow any of that to, and that's the thing. Like, if you know you're going to try something, and because I think I'm the one who does it the most, who challenges Josh regularly when it comes to rules on our adventures, but we've already had the conversation to where if I ask a question based on something, we have the conversation, it's quick, DM has the final say, and move on. And that is the rule of our table. And now it's not to say that you can't go home, call your friends, and be like, I think it should have went like this. Like, yeah, absolutely, sure, fine. But at the end of the day, it goes back to being collaborative, telling the story with your team. And if you're your lead player, which is what I will call the DM, because I don't think coach is an apt word for a DM. I think the lead player sets you up and gives you, again, that's where the conversation can lead to good compromise, where you're like, okay, I see this, and we'll do this instead for now, and we'll talk about it later. There's been plenty of times where Josh has done that for me, and I'm not a rules lawyer in the aspect of needing the rules to be followed. I just know them very well. So it's more or less like, how can I do something? And I always want to make sure that story leads. And that's the way that I would do it.
So this is the thing with any game, though, right? It's that you got to learn the rules. The important thing to remember about this particular game is that nobody cares if you actually follow them or not.
That's me.
Totally fair. Like rule 0, right?
Yeah,
I've seen so much, like, oh my gosh, I've seen so much brain rot on TikTok over, ooh, rule 0 sucks. It shouldn't be a rule, but it is. Okay, doesn't matter if it shouldn't. Like, it is. It's in there. So just suck it up, and follow rule 0. Like, if your table says, you know, like, as a collective, we want to play this way, then if it's really that, like, unbearable for you, find a different table. Because, I mean, again, like Kevin said, like, the player's biggest weapon is leaving the table. So if it's really that unbearable, find a table who has collectively agreed to play, you know, like, entirely like RAW or whatever. But rule 0 exists, so get over yourself.
And you need to know, I would also preface too, the fact that I'm able to do, like, and vibe with all the different, like, rulings on rules is that, like, you need to know the rules in order to break them. And, like, because of that, you create magic.
Absolutely. What is a subtle green flag for player or GM that lets you know someone is going to be great at your table?
A subtle one?
Just a green flag.
Usually if someone is able to crack a joke that breaks the entire table at once, it's a pretty good sign.
Fair.
Letting out your inner baddie, Will?
Well, I didn't do anything.
Let's see, for DM, as soon as I see a situation where, like I was saying, somebody asks about a rule and the DM says, I never thought about it that way. We'll rule it like that for now, but we'll take a look and we'll talk about it afterwards to see how we do it going forward. I'm like, a conversation has been had and we have moved on. Story continues. Everybody's happy. Voila. Right? Like, that's a definite green flag.
One of the green flags that I've always loved to see from a player is creativity. Hey, DM, I found this rock that seems to absorb light, or this rock that seems to just pull out life force when it makes contact with you. Can I make arrowheads out of it? Someone using an aspect that you had in your game earlier that was a monster, a trap, something, and they're using it for them in the future. Someone just wanting to step outside. All these players start off with different types of tools, disguise kits, but not too often do you see them use it. Sometimes they'll say, oh, I'm going to tinker over here, or they're going to say, I'm going to put on this disguise, but they don't go into detail about it. When a player does that, that's them showing initiative and more creativity, and it makes it to where everyone is like, oh, you could do that? I can make bullets that do this? Awesome. I'm going to do that. And another green flag is the guy with props. Whoever brings props to the game, that's whew.
Where is it? You have
Used
one
to-
in reach. I know you do.
They're all within reach.
Jeez, yeah.
And I do have one final question. And what what is the, and you can answer this as a player or as a GM. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned, respectively, as a player or as a GM, that you wish you had known when you started?
There are so many more of us out there. If you are having a bad time at a table, walk away.
That's a good one.
It's a great one.
And there are so many ways to find those things, and like so many new tools nowadays where you can just, whether it's going to a game store or whether it's just going online to a forum, whether it's going to Discord run by Creator Bard, either way, you go and you have a good
Link that in the description.
Yeah, you go and you have a good time. You find your people, and you take what you want and leave the rest, as it were.
And sometimes your group of friends have never touched D&D, but some of you have watched Critical Role, some of you have watched D&D in some way, shape, or form, and you're interested. Well, if all of you just get the basics down, one of you can easily be a DM, and then you just roll with it. Just make something simple and just have fun for the sake of having fun. And then you can grow from there. You have to start somewhere. Get the starter kit, play Baldur's Gate, something. But start somewhere, learn, see if you love it, which you probably will, and grow.
Yeah.
Don't think you're Matt Mercer or Brendan Lee Mulligan your first game. Calm down. It's not that serious. Have fun. You are your own person. You have your own strengths and weaknesses. Find what they are, build on them.
I think I will piggyback off of that last thing and say, as a GM, biggest thing I've learned that I wish I'd known at the beginning, because I got into D&D like circa the pandemic, like so many of us did, with Critical Role, right? And I saw Matt Mercer weaving his stories, and I did not understand the collaboration that went into it, like the level of collaboration. Like I knew, okay, yeah, they're all at the table playing, but it took me a long time to learn it is not your story. Like it is a story that you have plotted, but it's not your story. You've laid the outline, you've set the foundation, and then you've said, all right, guys, now build with me. Right?
Don't write a book, write a screenplay.
Yes. So yeah, I turned a couple people off early on to it. I turned a couple people off to it early on because I wanted to play D&D, and then I tried to say, well, you're not doing it right, because
This doesn't feel like that. What do you mean?
exactly.
Incorporate any of my gods that I made.
So it's not your story. It wasn't my story, and learning that has been a huge journey, and it's one of the most important things to me now. It's one of my favorite things about the game.
As a player, I wish I had known about. I've heard it called several things since we started doing it here, but Stars and Wishes, what we do. I wish I had learned about that sooner, because my first 2 years of D&D didn't have any of that, and there was a lot of emotional downplay off of games occasionally with a few characters. So that's something else to keep in mind. You're playing a game. It's fine to want to play emotionally charged games. We play emotionally charged games here. Fair warning to anybody who hasn't seen any of them yet, if you're catching this. But having that afterwards where you really come down from it.
Absolutely. Being able to kind of come down from, I love that terminology, because you're on these emotional, very high points, whether it's a good high point or just very stressful, weighty high point. Being able to come down from that and calm after. So I believe, does anybody else do you guys have any final thoughts on all of this? Okay, so I don't think any of us were writing any of this down, so I would recap and just say these are our points, but I don't have that. So thank you.
We'll use ChatGPT later.
Yeah, we'll use ChatGPT later. It's fine. But thank you all for watching, joining us, and hopefully maybe learning something. Till next time, guys. Keep on looking for legends. We love you all very much.